Men stare at places women never think about when real connection happens. Not the obvious spots, not the places women prepare or worry about, but 6 completely different areas that reveal something far deeper than physical attraction. And the surprising part, most women spend their entire lives missing these signals because they're looking in all the wrong places. Connection isn't what you've been told it is. It doesn't live where attraction lives. It doesn't show up in the same glances or the same moments. When a man feels genuine intimacy forming, his eyes move differently, slower, softer, toward places that tell him whether this feeling is real or just another passing spark. Before we explore the very first place his eyes go when connection starts building, you need to understand something that changes everything. Men don't look at women the same way when they feel intimacy starting to grow. The pattern shifts completely. Their eyes stop hunting and start searching. They stop scanning and start studying. They stop taking quick glances and start holding longer moments. And what they're looking for in those moments has almost nothing to do with physical beauty. They're searching for something else entirely, something that can't be faked, can't be performed, can't be manufactured through effort or intention. Most women believe they know when a man is interested. They look for confidence, for boldness, for direct attention, for obvious signs. But those signs tell you about attraction, not about connection. Connection moves quietly. It hides in places most people never think to look. And when a man starts feeling it, his whole body language changes in ways even he doesn't fully understand. His breathing slows down. His movements become gentler. His voice drops half a tone without him planning it. And his eyes begin a completely different journey than the one they take when he's just physically turned on. Think about the last time someone really saw you, not looked at you, but saw you, not admired your appearance, but noticed something deeper, something truer, something that felt like recognition instead of appreciation. That feeling, that moment when someone's attention touches something underneath your surface. That's what a man is searching for when connection starts forming. He's not looking at you anymore. He's looking for you, the real you, the version that exists when no one's watching, the energy you carry when you forget to perform. And here's what most women never realize. Connection for men doesn't begin in conversation. It doesn't start with shared interests or good timing or perfect chemistry. It begins in observation, in the quiet moments before words even matter, in the tiny details their eyes catch that their mind can't stop thinking about. A man who feels connection starting will stare at things that seem random, meaningless, completely unimportant to anyone watching. But to him, those details become everything. They become the proof that something different is happening, something rare. Now, before I tell you the first place men look when they feel intimacy building, let me say something you might find surprising. This isn't about romance. It isn't about seduction. It isn't about creating moments or saying the right things. Connection happens in the spaces between all of that, in the unplanned seconds, in the moments you're not trying, in the tiny pieces of yourself that slip through when you're simply being instead of doing. And men notice these pieces with surprising accuracy. They collect them, they remember them, they replay them later when they're alone, trying to understand why they can't stop thinking about you. What makes this even more interesting is how automatic it becomes for them. A man who feels connection growing doesn't decide to look at these places. He's pulled toward them. His attention keeps returning to the same spots again and again without him planning it. And each time he looks, the feeling deepens. Each time he notices something new, the intimacy strengthens. It's like his eyes are building a map of you that has nothing to do with how you look and everything to do with who you are. But something deeper happens in these moments too, something most women never catch. When a man stares at these places, he's not just observing, he's feeling, he's not just noticing details. He's experiencing safety, warmth, recognition, belonging. These glances become emotional anchors. They tell him this person understands something about him. This person feels familiar even though they just met. This person creates a space where he can breathe differently. Have you ever been with someone and felt like they were studying you, not judging, not analyzing, but truly studying? Like they were trying to memorize something about you that goes beyond memory. That's what happens when a man feels intimate connection beginning. His eyes become softer. His gaze becomes patient. He's not in a rush to look away. He's not worried about being caught staring. He's simply there, fully present, taking in every small detail that makes you specifically you and not anyone else. The truth is, most women completely misunderstand what creates intimacy for men. They think it's about being impressive, being perfect, being interesting, being attractive. But those things create admiration, not intimacy. Intimacy grows when a man sees your realness and feels drawn closer instead of pulling away. When your unguarded moments make him want more instead of less. When the parts of you that aren't polished or performed become the parts he thinks about most. Now we arrive at the beginning of that journey, the first place his eyes travel when connection starts forming. And this place surprises most women because it seems so small, so meaningless, so easy to overlook. But for a man feeling intimacy beginning, this spot tells him more than anything you could say. It shows him whether you're present, whether you're comfortable, whether something real is possible between you. Because this first place reveals your emotional state in ways nothing else can. A man's eyes, when connection is building, don't wander randomly. They follow a pattern that's completely different from attraction. They move toward vulnerability, toward authenticity, toward the moments where your guard drops slightly. And the very first place they land, almost every single time, is your hands. Not because of how they look, not because of jewelry or polish or shape, but because hands tell stories that faces often hide. Hands show nervousness, comfort, excitement, hesitation. They reveal what you're feeling before your words catch up. When a man feels intimacy starting, he watches how you use your hands when you talk. Do they move freely or stay hidden? Do they reach toward him slightly or pull back? Do they fidget with something or rest calmly? These tiny movements speak a language his heart understands even when his mind doesn't. Your hands show him whether you feel safe, whether you're relaxed, whether the moment between you feels natural or forced. And he reads these signals faster than you'd believe possible. But here's where things get even more interesting. A man who feels connection doesn't just look at your hands once. He returns to them throughout the conversation. Every few minutes, his eyes drop down, checking, reading, understanding. He notices when your hands relax. He sees when they tense. He catches the moment your fingers uncurl slightly or your grip softens. These changes tell him the intimacy is growing, deepening, becoming mutual. They confirm what he's feeling isn't one-sided. The way you touch objects around you matters too. How you hold a coffee cup, how you adjust your phone, how you brush hair behind your ear. Men notice these movements because they show your natural rhythm, your comfort level, your ease in the moment. A woman who's truly present moves differently than one who's performing. Her hands become expressive without effort. They gesture naturally. They rest without tension. And a man feeling connection will watch these movements like they're telling him secrets about who you really are. Then comes the internal shift, the moment when his breathing changes slightly, when his shoulders drop half an inch, when his whole body settles into the space you're sharing. That's the sign he's now fully invested in understanding you, not impressing you, not attracting you, but genuinely understanding you. And that shift changes where his eyes go next. But here's the part most women never catch. Before a man lets his attention move deeper into reading you, he confirms something critical. He checks whether this moment feels safe for both of you. Not physically safe, but emotionally safe. He searches for signs that you're open to being seen, not just looked at, that you're willing to be known, not just admired. And he finds that answer in your hands first, but then his eyes travel to the second place, a place that shows him even more about your inner world. After he's read your hands, after he understands your comfort level through those tiny movements, his eyes move upward in a way that feels almost careful, like he's approaching something delicate, like he knows the next place he looks will tell him whether real intimacy is possible or just an illusion he's creating in his own mind. And where his gaze falls next reveals far more than most women imagine. The second place men stare when they feel intimate connection is your eyes, but not the way you think. Not direct eye contact, not bold staring, not the confident gaze everyone talks about. He looks at your eyes when you're not looking at him. He watches them when you're focused on something else, when you're listening to someone across the room, when you're reading a menu, when you're lost in thought. Because your eyes, when you think no one's watching, tell the truth about what you're feeling in ways guarded eye contact never can. Men who feel connection starting become fascinated with your unguarded expressions, the softness that appears when you're relaxed, the slight sadness that flickers through when you think you're alone, the joy that lights up when something genuinely delights you. These real emotions, these unfiltered moments, pull him deeper than any performed version of yourself ever could. He's not looking for beauty, he's looking for truth. And your eyes, when they're not performing, show him exactly that. But something deeper also happens in these moments. When he watches your eyes while you're focused elsewhere, he starts imagining what it would be like to be the person you look at with that softness, to be the reason your eyes light up, to be the one who gets to see these expressions every day. His mind begins creating a future that includes you. And that future feels more real every time he catches another genuine expression crossing your face. The way your eyes change throughout conversation matters enormously. Do they stay guarded or gradually soften? Do they remain distant or slowly warm? Do they hold walls or start letting someone in? Men track these shifts with surprising attention because each small change tells him whether intimacy is actually forming or whether he's the only one feeling it. And nothing builds a man's desire for deeper connection more than seeing your eyes gradually open to him across minutes and hours. Then comes another shift. A deeper one. The moment when he realizes he's not just interested in you, he's beginning to care about you. There's a difference, and that difference shows up in where his eyes travel next. Because the third place men look when they feel intimate connection growing isn't about reading your emotions anymore. It's about understanding your world. It's about seeing what matters to you. It's about learning who you are through what surrounds you. But before we get there, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how a man who truly cares about you pays attention differently, how he remembers small details you mentioned once, how he notices when something's bothering you before you say anything? That kind of attention doesn't come from attraction. It comes from genuine interest in your inner world. And that interest always shows up in his eyes first, in what he chooses to notice, in what he asks about, in what he can't stop staring at, even when it seems completely random to everyone else watching. Now we arrive at the third place, and this one surprises most women because it seems so disconnected from romance or intimacy or any of the typical connection signs. But for a man feeling real intimacy building, this spot becomes critically important. It tells him about your life, your priorities, your values, your daily reality. The third place men stare when they feel intimate connection is whatever you interact with most naturally. Your phone when you check it, your bag when you reach for something, your keys when you fidget with them, the book you're carrying, the notebook you write in. Not because these objects matter, but because how you handle them tells stories about your life he wants to understand. He watches how carefully you treat your things, whether you're organized or chaotic, whether you're protective or casual. These details paint a picture of who you are when he's not around. And a man feeling connection desperately wants to understand that version of you, the everyday version, the real version that exists outside this moment you're sharing. Men who feel intimacy growing become almost detective-like in their observation. They notice the worn corner of your favorite book, the sticker on your phone case, the small tear in your bag you haven't fixed. These imperfections don't turn them off. They pull them closer. Because imperfection means reality. It means you're not performing. It means he's seeing the actual person, not the polished version created for moments like these. And that authenticity creates intimacy faster than any perfect presentation ever could. But here's what most women don't realize. When a man stares at these everyday objects in your life, he's not judging them. He's trying to imagine himself in that life. He's wondering what it would be like to be part of your normal routine, to see these objects every day, to understand the small habits and patterns that make up who you are. His mind is already building a bridge between his world and yours, trying to figure out if they could fit together naturally. The way you move through space matters too. How you organize yourself, how you handle transitions, how you manage your belongings. A man feeling connection watches all of this because it shows him your rhythm, your pace, your approach to life, and he's subconsciously asking himself whether that rhythm matches his, whether your pace feels comfortable next to his, whether life with you would feel natural or forced. He's gathering information his heart needs to decide if this connection is worth pursuing deeper. Then something interesting happens. After he's observed your hands, studied your eyes, noticed your things, his attention shifts again. But this time the shift is more emotional, more vulnerable, because the fourth place men look when they feel intimate connection involves risk. It requires him to admit, even just to himself, that this is becoming more than casual interest, that what he is feeling is moving towards something real. But before his eyes can travel there, something has to happen inside him first, a kind of internal permission, a moment where he decides it's safe to let himself feel more, to want more, to imagine more. And that decision shows up in his body before it reaches his conscious mind. His posture changes. He leans in slightly. His attention becomes even more focused. His whole presence shifts from observing to connecting, from watching to engaging, from interest to investment. The fourth place men stare when they feel intimate connection is your mouth when you're not speaking. Not your lips the way attraction works, but your mouth in its resting state, the natural position it holds when you're listening, when you're thinking, when you're simply being quiet in someone's presence. Because your mouth, when it's not performing speech or smiles, tells him whether you're at peace, whether you're comfortable in silence, whether you can simply exist without needing to fill every moment with words or energy. Men feeling real intimacy crave that comfort. They're searching for someone who doesn't require constant entertainment, someone who can share silence without it feeling awkward or empty. Someone whose presence feels calming instead of exhausting. And your mouth in those quiet moments shows him exactly that. If your lips stay relaxed, if your jaw stays soft, if your whole face maintains ease during pauses in conversation, he feels safe. He feels like this connection has room to breathe, like there's space for something real to develop without pressure or performance. But something deeper also happens here. When a man watches your mouth in these quiet moments, he starts thinking about intimacy in a different way. Not physical intimacy, but emotional intimacy, the kind that exists in comfortable silence, the kind where you can sit together without talking and it feels more connected than any conversation. He's imagining what it would be like to have mornings with you where words aren't necessary. Evenings where silence feels full instead of empty. Moments where just being near each other is enough. The shape your mouth makes when you're thinking fascinates him too. That slight purse when you're concentrating. The small movement when you're working through an idea. The gentle bite when you're holding back a comment. These unconscious expressions show him your thought process. They give him a window into your mind. And a man feeling connection wants that window. He wants to understand how you think, what captures your attention, what makes you pause and consider before speaking. Men notice when your mouth softens during conversation too, when the tension leaves your jaw, when your lips relax from their polite smile into something more natural. This shift tells him you're lowering your guard. You're becoming more yourself. You're letting him see past the social version into the real version. And nothing deepens a man's feeling of intimate connection more than sensing he's being allowed past your walls into the space where you actually live. Then comes the deepest shift of all, the moment when everything changes from this is interesting to this is important, the point where his casual interest transforms into genuine care, where his eyes stop looking for information and start looking for ways to protect, to understand, to support. And that transformation shows up in where his attention goes next, because the fifth place men stare, watch, and they feel intimate connection reveals the moment he starts thinking about your well-being instead of just your presence. But here's what makes this so powerful. Most women never see this shift happening. They're too busy managing the interaction, monitoring their own behavior, wondering if they're making a good impression. They miss the exact moment when a man's eyes change from curious to caring, from interested to invested, from attracted to attached. And that moment, that precise second when his gaze shifts to the fifth place, that's when you know something real is forming, something that might actually last. Before I tell you what that place is, let me explain something about how men experience intimacy. It's not like attraction. Attraction hits fast and fades fast. Connection builds slowly and stays longer. And the sign that connection is becoming real isn't excitement or passion or intensity. It's concern. It's the moment a man starts worrying about your comfort, your happiness, your experience of the moment you're sharing. When his focus shifts from how do I feel to how is she feeling, that's when intimacy crosses into something deeper. The fifth place men stare when they feel intimate connection is your shoulders and the way you carry tension, not in a physical attraction way, but in a protective way. He notices when your shoulders are up near your ears, when they're tight and defensive, when they're carrying stress you haven't mentioned, and something in him wants to fix that, wants to make you feel safe enough to drop them, wants to create space where you can release whatever weight you're holding. This isn't about control, it's about care. A man who feels real connection becomes sensitive to your discomfort in ways he can't explain. Your tension bothers him, not because it affects him, but because it affects you. He starts noticing when you shift uncomfortably, when you adjust your posture to relieve some ache, when you roll your shoulders trying to release tightness. These small movements pull his attention because his heart wants you to feel at ease. But here's where things get even more interesting. When a man watches your shoulders throughout conversation, he's tracking whether his presence helps or hurts. Do your shoulders relax as time passes? Do they gradually drop as you become more comfortable? Or do they stay tense, signaling that something about this interaction doesn't feel safe? This feedback matters enormously to him. It tells him whether the connection he's feeling is mutual or one-sided, whether you're opening to him or staying closed. Men feeling intimate connection also notice how you breathe. They watch your shoulders rise and fall. They track whether your breathing is shallow and anxious or deep and calm. They sense when you take that one deep breath that signals relief or release or a shift in your emotional state. These observations might seem small, meaningless even, but to a man who's starting to care, they're everything. They're the evidence that you feel safe with him, that his presence creates comfort instead of stress. The way you hold yourself when you're vulnerable matters too. Do your shoulders curl forward protectively? Do they stay open and exposed? Do they shift between the two depending on the topic? A man tracking these changes is learning when you feel safe to be vulnerable and when you need to protect yourself. And that information helps him understand how to create more moments of safety, how to be someone you can relax around, how to earn the kind of trust that allows real intimacy to grow. Then comes the final shift, the deepest one. The moment when a man realizes this connection has moved past casual interest into something that's changing him, something that's making him think differently about his future, something that's creating feelings he didn't plan for and can't easily control. And that realization shows up in where his eyes travel last, because the sixth place men stare when they feel intimate connection is the most revealing of all. It's the place that tells him whether this feeling is temporary or whether it's something that might actually matter. But before we get there, something important needs to be said. Real intimacy isn't about perfection. It isn't about being impressive or charming or always knowing what to say. It's about being real enough that someone can see you and still want to move closer. It's about showing the unpolished parts and watching someone's interest deepen instead of disappear. It's about vulnerability being met with care instead of judgment. And when that happens, when a man feels safe enough to care and you feel safe enough to be seen, that's when connection transforms into something rare. The sixth place, men stare when they feel intimate connection, is your overall presence in the space you're sharing. Not your body, not your face, not any specific feature, but the way you inhabit the moment, the energy you create around you, the feeling that exists in the space between you both. He stops looking at parts and starts seeing the whole. He stops analyzing details and starts feeling the atmosphere you create simply by being yourself. This is when his eyes soften completely, when his gaze becomes almost meditative. He's not trying to read you anymore. He's not gathering information or making assessments. He's simply experiencing you. The way your energy fills the room, the warmth or calm or joy or depth you bring without trying, the feeling of being near you versus being alone. And that feeling, that sense of your presence becomes what he can't stop thinking about later. Men at this stage of connection start noticing how they feel around you more than how you look. Do they feel more themselves or less? Do they feel energized or drained? Do they feel seen or invisible? Do they feel safe or judged? Your presence answers all these questions without you speaking a word. And a man who feels good around you, who feels more alive and more real and more at ease in your presence, that man is already halfway to falling for you, whether he realizes it or not. But something deeper happens here too. When a man stares at your overall presence instead of your parts, he's imagining a future, not in a desperate or premature way, but in a natural way. He's wondering what life would feel like with this presence in it regularly, what mornings would be like, what hard days would feel like, what celebrations would become. He's not just enjoying the moment anymore. He's testing whether this feeling could sustain, whether this connection could deepen, whether this person could become someone important. So the next time you're with someone and you catch him staring at your hands, or studying your eyes when you're not looking, or watching your shoulders throughout the conversation, or taking in your whole presence instead of your parts, understand what's happening. He's not just looking, he's connecting. He's not just interested, he's beginning to care. And that care, that genuine interest in who you actually are beneath your surface, that's the beginning of something that could grow into the kind of intimacy most people spend their whole lives searching for but never quite finding. Because real connection doesn't happen when everything's perfect, it happens when everything's real. When two people feel safe enough to stop performing and start existing, when they can share space without pressure or expectation, when they can be quiet together and have it feel full instead of empty, when they can see each other's realness and want more instead of less. That's when intimacy transforms from a moment into something lasting, from an experience into a foundation, from a feeling into a relationship worth building